G'day there folks, I'm Beanie and welcome to Beanie Draws. G'day there folks, I'm Beanie, you're watching Beanie Draws, and this video is the second part of what you can see as the Raptor pack, and I'm going to be now erasing all of my line work for the most part. Now for this part I'm going to be using a kneadable eraser. I've mentioned this in a few of my other videos, but I don't expect everyone to have seen all of my videos, so I'm just going to reiterate. So yeah, for now I'm going to use my kneadable eraser and I'm going to lightly, well maybe not so lightly, go over all of this, erase the key lines, and then go over it all in permanent mark, not permanent marker, go over all this in felt tip pen. Also, the reason why I erase the hard lines is so that it'll be much easier to see what I've inked and what I haven't inked with the pen when I get to that stage. The other thing, interesting thing that you'll probably note is that when I'm erasing with a kneadable eraser, or at least I've noticed this, is that when you erase with a normal eraser, it seems to leave rubber on the paper from, I'm guessing, grinding the lead off the paper, and then it kind of grinds the rubber off the eraser. With this, it doesn't seem to do that. It doesn't seem to leave any marks. All it does is it picks up the lead, and then that's it. It doesn't leave any like smudges, or it just basically picks up the lead and doesn't really leave anything of itself. Like, see, it'll pick up a bit of that lead, but then you just pick it up and you don't really have to. It leaves very little ing compared to a normal eraser. So at first I didn't like kneadable erasers, but now I'm growing to quite like them. So yeah, that's kind of how it looks like when it's been kneaded. All that lead on there, and you just mash it up in a massage it in, and then you're good to go again. So there we go, our image is all but eliminated. I mean, if I was going to properly erase this, I would be using a different eraser and going right to town on it. But I still want to be able to see my image, which is why I've erased it down to this level. Oh, the only bad thing about kneadable erasers is they use a lot of hand muscle to knead the lead out of it, so my hand is in a bit of pain right now. Now this is the point that I find incredibly intimidating, and that is laying down your very first marks. I find this process to be incredibly intimidating, because once you've got the ink down, you can't do anything about it. Once it's down, it's down. Unlike pencils, you can't erase it, so I'm going to try my best to not mess this up, which is why I find using very thin fine liners to start off with and then building up my lines gradually is kind of the best way to go about building up an image without potentially ruining it. So that's what I'm going to try and do now. But you'll notice that my hands are a little bit shaky, unfortunately. It's one thing I don't like, but unfortunately we cannot help what our bodies do and don't want to do. So right now I'm using a Copic multi-liner SP 0.03mm. I've talked about this and other pens before, but I don't expect you to have seen that video, so I'm just gonna mention that now. I'll probably go over the whole thing with this and then build up my lines from there. One thing about this Copic Multiliner SP 0.03 fine liner is you probably can't see it in the time-lapse parts, but you can't work fast with this pen. You have to work very slowly, otherwise you won't even leave a mark on the paper. That's how thin this thing is, but it's helping me lay down my first key line. See there? I was going way too fast. I gotta slow it down. Sometimes I don't know if it's just because I've destroyed this nib with previous artworks I've done, but with this pen you can actually pull out the nibs and, like, hang on. For example, here is a replacement nib for this one, but I don't have the tool to pull out the nib and put in the new one. I don't know, that one definitely is more extruded than this nib, which might have something to do with why I'm finding it difficult to lay down marks with this pen, but yeah, basically this is one of the, I think this is pretty much the smallest nib you can get for a fine liner. And as you can see, it is incredibly tiny. But I don't know, I like starting my line work at a very tiny scale, as small as I can get. Sometimes I start at 0.5, but because I'm working at a small scale, I'm finding that starting at 0.3 is a good way to get down the foundations of what I want to do. And unlike working at 0.1 or 0.2 or whatever, you've got more room for detail, and then I can build it up from there. I can make lines darker with a 0.1, and then I can make it even darker if I want with a 0.3. And for this one, I can imagine that I probably won't need to get any bigger than 0.5. For larger pieces, sometimes I use a 0.8. That's where you get quite a broad nib. As you may have seen in my tutorial videos, it's such and such on doing felt tip pens. But yeah, at the moment I'm basically doing this whole thing, starting it off with this very incredibly tiny nib, and then I will build up all the detail from there afterwards. So yeah, just thought I'd point that out. I actually think that the 0.05 nib works better than the 0.03, and that pen is far more expensive. That's okay. This one just flows better over the paper, and that's basically what I want. I was getting frustrated with how slow that progress was taking. And I really should be doing it from this side to this side, because the further I get here, the more my hand's blocking this. Unfortunately, I'm liking this one more than that one. This might be a good opportunity to try and attempt to teach the whole Raptor claw thing. As you can see, we've got a few little wrinkles. That will be the as the sickle claw folds up. And then going to have a big sort of rounded pad. This pen is so slow. And then slowly draw in that claw. So then we draw in the sickle claw. Got that padding. Gonna move up there. That's what I'm going to call that part of the body, there. And then I'm going to draw some little curved bumps that act as the padding under the foot. Then on top of the foot, on top of the toes, I will probably draw some lines to indicate the toe scale. Oh, I'll draw them now. Actually, try and draw them lightly. Some light lines that indicate the scales on top of the toe. I suppose. Oh, there. I suppose I'll try and do it here now that I'm feeling a little bit more confident with what I'm doing. Once I've got enough lines down, that's when I start feeling more confident in the artwork that I've got. Because then it's not about trying to place down the lines where you want them, it's about making those lines as thick as you want them. And I'm just going to draw that other claw. And as I mentioned in my other video, these claws are proportionately way too big, and that's the whole point. Maybe I'll try and do in the tire now. You really should probably be using a some sort of tool to allow you to draw a perfect circle. Tempted to make a Maynard James Keenan joke in there, but I won't. Basically, it's difficult to draw a circle that is perfect in its roundness. That might also be why I don't like why I don't draw vehicles all that often. I like drawing vehicles occasionally, but I don't know, I just don't do it very often. Can't remember the last time I tried to draw a car. But yeah, just thought I'd point. And I suppose I can. Let's draw this foot, shall we? So I'm going to draw in the ankle and the calf. Might do some little wrinkle lines there. Bring it up to the knee, and then fill in those claws. The toenail claws. Oh, I'm covering all this up. That's brilliant, isn't it? It gets to the point where this angle's a little bit difficult to draw with, to show and draw. I draw the top of the toes and give them a bit of a curve so they look like the foot is kind of falling, not falling, bending, because it's being lifted up. Some toe padding, and then you could call that a shin, maybe. I don't know. Is that a shin? I can draw these little lines for the scales. When I do cartoons with a fine liner pen like this, I don't draw much of the detail. I just do the basics of the detail. Doing another little the big padded thing, the toe, and then the big claw. I'm also going to do some of the grass right away. As you can see here, wiggle lines wiggle lines, like I mentioned in my other drawing video, is what makes the motorcycle tyres look like they're spinning. The good thing about these tyres are they're meant to be black anyway, so even though I've sort of messed up with them, it's not that big of a deal because they're supposed to be black anyway. Just drawing circles are very difficult. But you can do the little spinning wiggly lines to make it look like it's moving. I'm also going to do some lines to kind of indicate the movement in the grass. And so it gives a kind of an indication of perspective a little bit. I want it to look more like that one, but we'll see how it goes. Trying not to mess up these line works, but I may have already. That's okay, it's not too bad, I suppose. At this point, I'm not striving for perfection. At this point, I'm just trying to get it to look as good as I can without stuffing it up. Like I said, felt tip pens that I'm using right now I find very intimidating and they're easy to mess up. That's why I really envy those artists out there who can get really, really good quality line work out of their fine liners. And also in these videos I do a lot of growl talking now. I should probably, no, that's my natural voice when I'm talking in a low manner. But that's the difference between talking at, oh look at that, it's 3 AM now. That's the difference between talking at 3 AM and talking at 3 PM. When you talk at 3 PM, you can talk a little bit louder. When it's 3 AM, you don't want to be waking up the neighbours. With my other video of drawing blue, I did this line, no, I did that line black, I remember now. And the middle part was blue. Maybe I'll do that again. I'm not fully sure if I'm going to do this in colour, and if I do it in colour, I'm not really sure how I'm going to go about it. That's it. I reckon you guys will. Well, you probably already like how this is going so far. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this video because, 4 Velociraptors, 4 times the amount of video. This is going to be an incredibly long one. Even when it's time-lapsed. I think technically that line's meant to be white, but if I have messed it up, I'm sure someone in the comments will pull me up on that. Well, I can put in, actually I'll put that instrument panel in, draw his other hand, and then draw a little bit of the Raptor's back. Not really sure how I'm going to do I feel like there needs to be a leg in there somewhere. And her hand is just going to be hidden behind that body, which looks kind of weird, but there's not much I can do about that. And I think I'm going to do something with the feet in that one a little bit later. This could be a good opportunity to actually redraw. I'm going to do that. I am now going to use this as an opportunity to draw in the other Velociraptor. Because it's pencil. Pencil can go over marker. And then I'll be able to figure out how I want the other legs to look. I don't need to worry about the rest of that. I don't know if I like that pose, but that's okay because we can erase that out. Well, this section of the video, because what I'm doing is I'm recording this in multiple takes. So I think I've already got an hour and a half into this. Actually, maybe how I had it was alright. I just needed a little bit of, yeah, just a little hint of foot. Just enough. Alright, that's just enough, I think, to highlight that there's another raptor foot behind there. And then I'll do the same here. That's just going to be an ankle. It's in ink now, so there's no turning back. Well, unless you want to use Photoshop in it. Yeah, and I'm erasing some of the lines right now. Well, I've got the basic core. I'm going to be working a lot more on these raptors, but for now, I think I want to put in the background. So I'm going to try and do the trees. I'm not overly sure how I'm going to do the trees, so I'm just going to do the outline of them, and then if I want to make some parts of them dark and black, because I'm thinking the trees themselves, actually what I can do, here's a hint on what you can do if you want to decide which one, if you want to do the trees themselves black and the background to be white, or if you want the background to be white, black and the trees to be white. I think I said that right, I'm not sure. But basically, that's the good thing about pencil. You can just colour it in, see how it works. If you like it, then you keep it. If you don't like it, then you try it again with a different method. I'm also doing some, oh, there we go. You did miss out on too much there. I'm also trying to make it look a little bit like there's some vines in there, in the background. Fun fact about the Velociraptor running through the jungle scene, which this is based off. That scene, and I'm guessing even Chris Pratt himself, 100% CGI. And when I say 100% CGI, even the jungle is CGI, which is pretty impressive. I've kind of got past the fact that everything in that movie was CGI. They're very lucky that the story worked and that they focused on the raptors as characters as opposed to just being creatures, so still didn't like the fact that they didn't use much, I don't think they used any animatronic, and if they did, they completely replaced them with CGI, which I didn't like, but I can forgive that, and I think I'm going to do the background black. Just to test it out, this is what I meant by, you colour in a part and you decide if you like it or not. And I may find that I like how it looks in this regard. Because I want the background to be non-detailed. I want it to be a lot of contrast. And then compare that to colouring in the trees. I think you'll agree with me when I say that I like this style better. Or do I do some trees in the background completely black, and then using the fine liner to render with the light lines like I've done before, to give the illusion that it's toned when it's not. That could work. I think I like that idea. That will give it a little bit of extra depth. So, I'm going to try it now. I'm going to commit it to ink. You're watching it here first. Well, naturally watching it here first. Everything I've done is, see, I've done it right in ink anyway, so there's no going back now. I guess you can kind of imagine this as a little bit of a tutorial on how to draw trees in a forest. And then what I can do as well is I can put in some black bushes in the background. Then what I'll do is I'll make this bush not black. So there we've got some foreground. Well, it's a background, but the foreground of the background will be white. These black trees, which will be the background, will be black. And you can see how the midsection will be kind of grey. I'm a little bit worried about committing to ink in doing the background the way I want it, but I guess we'll see. I could do dot rendering. I wonder if I'll do dot rendering. I guess I'll figure it out down the track, but yeah, for now, I think you kind of get what I'm... yeah. I think you can kind of see what I'm going for there. And I don't know about you, but I quite like it, so I'm going to stick with that. Again, I really need to stop drawing from this side to that side, because the one thing about drawing from right to left, especially if you're right-handed, is when you're drawing the detail there, you can't see what you're doing underneath your hand for comparison, because what I want to do is I want to use this side. I want to draw this side, but use this side as a reference for this side, which is difficult when your whole arm is covering the image. Exactly do what I wanted to do with this tree. I closed up the top of the tree when I wasn't intending to. That's okay. I'm also drawing the trees in between the raptor heads, so you can kind of see a bit more depth and three-dimensionalism. It's a bit of a challenging step to take, but it works out in the end. And there's my upside down seagulls. Right now, how I'm seeing the background is kind of like a platformer video game from the 90s, where they'd focus on making the backgrounds flat and 2D. Well, everything was flat and 2D back in those days, so they had no real choice in the matter. But that's exactly the style I'm going for with this background. And I just had an idea to put a vine in there, because vines are very jungle, which will help emphasize the fact that they're running through a jungle. I like to think so anyway. I think that works as an idea, as a concept. So, yeah. So there's a jungle vine. Let's colour in this tree now. That one is not going to be coloured in. This one will be. It's a bit of a challenging concept to get your head wrapped around, because I just came up with it then, so it might be challenging for me as well. Hopefully I don't mess it up, but as you can see here, it's worked out pretty well, so I'm going to continue it along the whole background. And then after I've done that, then I'll focus on drawing the raptors. The raptors if you're American, or the raptors if you're Australian, or any other different accent. I'm just going to do a little bit of bush in there. It's kind of hard to know where to finish up an illustration sometimes, especially when there's no defined boundary and border. Yeah, I think that's okay. Might put a little bit of extra background bush in there. This point is where I'd be using the 0.8, but can't really be bothered pulling that out right now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in that lead layer. I'm going to make it more uniform than that other side. I suppose it doesn't matter if you colour in a little bit over the tail at the moment, because you can just erase that section. I'm debating whether to do dot rendering with this part, to do line rendering, or just to leave it in pencil. I can already see an evolution of how I want this background to be done. Right now I'm just kind of experimenting with a kind of a texture line pattern for the ground, so that it makes it a bit easier to understand that there's different layers of the ground. So that's kind of working. Probably this stripe on blue. Later on down the track I'm going to be actually refining some of these lines and giving some of them a little bit of extra thickness, bit of tapering, just to give the lines a bit of extra life. And up until this point, the video has actually gone for, well, it's in about 4 parts now, I think. I've finished editing the pencil side of things, and the first major part of the line rendering, or the line drawing, which is what I'm continuing on with now. So yes, this drawing has been taking a while, but I thank you all for your patience, and hopefully when this is finished, it will prove to be worth the wait. And it seems that this pen is losing a bit of its ink. I think they do tend to lose their ink over time. They dry up a little bit in the nib, so I think I've had these pens for about 2 years now, possibly. So I've got that down. Now I'm going to try and be quote unquote ballsy and see if I can get some of these lines a little bit thicker with a bit of personality. I still get a little bit unnerved about using felt tip pens. I'm going to fill in some of these shadows underneath the feet. also going to put in some little details in some of the scales, but I'm doing these lines incredibly lightly, so I'm putting in the detail very, very, very lightly. I'm like barely touching the paper with the nib of my pen, which should hopefully get a little bit of those fine details in this fine small size. Also going to add some little lines along its finger that we all tend to draw on these dinosaurs. I'm also trying to do some very basic rendering as well, using very light cross-hatching. Gonna make my trees a little bit more, give them a little bit of a dynamic range in the tapering. So really right now what I'm doing is just trying to make my lines a little bit more lifelike. Well, not lifelike, but trying to give them a little bit of varied thicknesses. So like, hopefully you can see in these bits, the middle sections are thicker than the end. I'm just debating whether to make these claws black right away or to build up their texture. Gonna add some lines here to kind of indicate some of the scaled details, even though I'm not putting any scales in this. I just want to kind of add in some of those little lines. I will make these claws a little bit darker. And really with these things I'm just building bits and pieces as I see the need to. Unfortunately, this Raptor looks a little bit angrier than what I'd like. See if I can fix it up a little bit, but I think sometimes you just like, I like that Raptor the best, and probably that Raptor, and probably blue, but sometimes you're not gonna get everything perfect. You may notice in the way that I'm doing my line work is that I mean around, say here, I'm doing some thick lines, but I'm trying to have my thickest lines at the bottom of each object. So like this fuel tank, for example, I'm without accidentally messing it up through explaining things, because it's hard to explain and draw at the same time, but you'll probably see there and like on the neck and under here, I'm trying to do the bottom side of the lines and objects with a thicker line than top, and I think that gives it a bit of a more I don't know, it's not really a three-dimensional aspect, because it's a 2D style with a 3D tint to it, but basically, I guess the sun is the light source is coming from above it all, as you can see with the shading of the trees and such. But you know, the shadows are underneath the Raptors, and I'm trying to just make it like, you know, around here, around here, around here, around here. So I'm trying to focus more of the lighting underneath. I mean, from above and the shadows underneath. So that's why the thickest lines will be underneath the Raptors and everything. I mean, there'll still be thick lines at the top and all that, but most of the more concise it's kind of hard to explain what kind of style it is really, but the tapering, the thickness of the lines, just to give it a bit more of a organic. What would you call it? I don't know. Basically, okay, the consistent, precise lineage of that foot, I find looks fairly mechanical, and the lines around here, they look all consistent, and like, you know, with a consistent, similar line thickness, it looks very mechanical, and you could say a little boring. Whereas around here, there, the light and thicknesses again, like, you know, between thick and thin. Around here, you can see that some of the lines are thicker, some of the lines are thinner. Around here, it just kind of adds a little bit more interest and life to the line work, and that is why I'm going with that kind of style. And that's why I prefer to have some of the lines thicker, some of the lines thinner, to give it a little bit more personality and organic. I don't know, just to make it a little bit more fun and less mechanical and less you know, precision based. Yeah, less precision based and more loose, organic, and lively. I don't know if I've explained that very well, but hopefully that has explained it. I think I did watch a video on YouTube somewhere where another artist was explaining that whole thing where they're just, you know, making some of their lines thicker, some of their lines were retaining the thinness, but just to give, you know, just to give it a bit of a life and character. And as you can see here, I liked the thinness of that part of the line. I just wanted to make it thicker around here. So yeah, it's just about basically, and I'll show you like in this too, if you can even see it. But I'll make this line thicker, build it up, and then tapering it down to a thin line there. Now what I'm going to try and do is build a little bit, you know what I was saying about the line thicknesses and that. Now I'm going to try and do the same thing with the grass as well. And there's going to be a little bit of texture in that light stuff that I'm going to try and get. Just want to add, like, you know, varying thicknesses. Basically, it's all about making your lines less technical, less mechanical, and more lively, as I keep mentioning now. I might put some little textures and lines in here. I'm also going to color in some of these Raptor claws right now. I forgot how zoomed in I was. So this is probably a good way to see some little bits of finer detail that I'm trying to put in with the detail and all that. Gonna make these claws dark. Might even put some like little foot claws. Not foot claws, foot scales. I have to be careful to remember to be consistent in what I'm in style. So I'll do some like little lines along the fingers. I think the line underneath these jaws need to be a little bit stronger, so I'm going to add a thicker line underneath that jaw. And okay, I think we get an idea of some of the line thicknesses now, hopefully. Now I'm just going to continue on with the building up my thicknesses. Building up where I think lines need to be a bit thicker. Let's just do a quick little bit of experimentation. I'll use this part. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to transfer over to my other, this uni pin 0.1 millimeter. It tends to be, I've done another video in the past about pens. It seems to be a little bit thinner in line thickness than the art line, and because this pen doesn't appear to be working anymore, I'm going to be trying out, let's just see how this goes. Now, ideally I'd want my lines to be even thinner than this, which is why I was trying with the 0.5, but maybe I just have to press down even lighter. Okay, got some of those lines down. Let us now erase the bottom of those lines and just see, because you can't really see the lines too well. Let's see if erasing the lead underneath yields some more distinct lines on this camera. You can see some of the textures, but I'm trying to make it look like that they're just toned in. It doesn't seem too bad. Not exactly how I wanted it, but you just adapt your work, I guess. I did want my lines to be more precise, but they seem to be getting a little bit wiggly, which I suppose isn't too bad for organic ground. Difference between that shadow and that shadow is this leg is lifted up off the ground, so I'm trying to make the shadow look a little bit lighter by using less lines compared to this side. I may add more. I might do that right now, actually. Just, you try out things to see what works and what what I'm doing here with these legs and here is I'm just giving them slight bits of line so that they look darker than this area, but they don't look totally dark. Now I'm just building up using bits of line here and there just to build up my tones and little tiny bits of detail. Not a huge amount of detail yet, or at all, but just enough to build up more. But as you can see, you can probably tell now, compared to where I started off with this thing, that the more dynamic changes in the line shape definitely adds a bit of character. I think what I need to do now is make these trees in the background, give them the same treatment that I gave the raptors, make the lines a little bit thicker. So it looks like in hindsight, I may have done Chris Pratt's hair completely wrong. But that's okay, I suppose. And his hair is a lot. His forehead is higher, and his hair is nowhere near as big and thick as I've drawn it. But such is life. It actually looks like he has sideburns. That might be also a bit of the problem as to why I didn't initially have him looking like. He didn't look quite like Chris Pratt. Okay, I think that might look a little bit better. Well, I suppose to some it'd look a lot better, but I'm just going to refine his hair a little bit. Because his hair is brown, I'm not coloring the whole thing black, just putting the blacks in the underneath section. Because that seems to be how his hair looks in a lot of photos, that it's darker at the bottom than it is on the top. The sideburn kind of goes into a bit of a beard. But not a big beard, just a little bit of a stubbly beard. And his hair is a little bit pointed out forwards. And I'm just going to refine the side of his head so that he has a bit more of his profile. So it may be a little bit too black of hair, but it's a little bit better. I'm just going to put some contrasting bits of grass here. So make it a bit darker down here for more contrast between the two raptors. Well, I think it's probably safe to erase the lines or the pencil from here, from the bottom part anyway. So I'll do that now. See what treasures we reveal. Okay, now I've decided I am going to try and live a little bit dangerously. And I'm going to attempt to do some of the coloring. Well, not really the coloring, but some of the slight illusions of each of the different raptors. Because I know they've got different patterns and that. But just a forewarning in this little part. I'm sure that the positioning of the raptors are wrong. And I'm sure I'm going to give them the colors wrong. I basically did blue right away because I figured, the beta is, as she keeps being referred to. So I'm assuming she'll be like, right out the front, and I'm just gonna figure out what I'm gonna do with the rest of them. It's not gonna be perfect by any stretch of the means, but I think what I'll do is I'll do a very, very light coloring, not coloring, very light use of line work. I'm going to make this one Delta. Apparently this is Delta. With these kind of bubbly, with the kind of bubbly patterns. I mean, to be honest, when I watched the movie, other than the toys and people's fan art, with the toys, with the movie, I didn't actually notice any real individual color patterns really, other than maybe, I think it's Charlie that has the stripes down the side. But like, in full light, when they were in the cage together, when they were, being fed, I did not notice any major differences in their color. They all basically just looked like green raptors, except for one had a little bit of stripe, and Blue, who has a very distinct stripe. But I figured I'd, just do some very light. I mean, I'm using the .05 millimeter thing, and I'm just doing this really, really, really lightly. Like I'm barely touching the paper again. Just to kind of put in a hint of the individual elements of each raptor. And I'm just hoping that I don't mess this up, and I'm hoping that I don't get people going, Beanie, you did it wrong, you gave the wrong, you did each raptor wrong. So I'm just trying my best here. I mean, to be honest, I'm more used to the the raptors in Jurassic Park 1 were basically grey or brown, depending on, the color settings that you watch the movie on. And apparently around here, Delta has like some blue on her face, but I never really noticed that, so I'm just gonna leave it blank for now. But yeah, the raptors that I noticed more significantly were the raptors in the Lost World, which had very definitive, orange with stripes along their back like a tiger. And because I saw that one at the movies, when I saw that at the movies, it was pretty distinct, so it left an impression in my mind. And the Raptor in Jurassic Park 3, I've got a feeling that Blue is somehow has some of its DNA from that the Raptor, especially the one with the blue and red eyes. I quite like the Raptors in Jurassic Park 3, to be honest. I didn't like the movie very much, but I liked the Raptor design. It was about as bird-like as I'd want them to be. But yeah. So, yeah. Hopefully the way I've drawn Delta is okay. Oh, and there's the rain outside. I'm still not overly sure how I'm going to do Echo. I think I'm going to leave Echo for now. And maybe I'll give Charlie her stripes. To be honest, I think Charlie's probably the closest to the Lost World Raptors with her stripes down her back. And I'm going to be doing these patterns very light, because I don't want them to be too prominent and dominative. So as you can see, very, very, very light pressure. Again, barely even touching the page. Stop going out of focus, camera. So I think that's probably good enough. Maybe I'll do some very, very light rendering. I mean, to be honest, if I was going to scan this, it wouldn't even show up, I don't think. So hopefully that looks like Delta and Charlie, the Raptors, hopefully. And I mean, blue looks like blue. Still don't know how I'm really gonna do Echo, because I mean, like I keep saying, I didn't really notice any huge differences in their looks in the movie. It's basically any fan art that I've seen or the toys that where they look distinct and unique. And I wanted to try and have my Raptors closer to the movie versions as opposed to any toys or whatever. So hopefully the way that I've portrayed these Raptors haven't lost me any fans or lost me any subscribers. If you really hate the way that I've drawn them, I deeply apologize. So this is how the illustration is looking so far. All the inking is done. I'm thinking that the next stage I'm going to do some coloring actually, which I wasn't initially planning on, but I think I'm going to do a bit of cell rendering, see how that goes. But yeah, if you liked this video, if you liked watching me inking this illustration, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already done so, comment on what you thought. If there's any other things you'd like to see in the future, I do read them. Probably won't get to them right away, but I will get to them eventually. But yeah, thanks for watching this video. Hopefully you've been entertained. Hopefully I've fulfilled that request for people wanting to see the Velociraptors. I will probably be doing another one of these in a more serious tone. I don't know when that will be. It'll be in a while. I don't think it'll be anytime soon, because, I want to do some other drawings in the meantime. But yeah, hopefully you've liked this video and all the other longer series that I've done lately. If you did, like them, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and I'll catch you in the next video shortly, whenever that will be. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheerio for now.